I wish everybody could hunt hogs for the first time, to just release an arrow on them before you go to anything else. And actually, I didn't start hog hunting with a bow, so it's funny that I'm even saying that. I wanted him to experience as many different ways of hunting hogs as possible. The only thing he didn't get to do is I really wanted you to experience running dogs. Pigs aren't that pretty, but just to watch them and just so calm, they're just in their element. The piglets were playing. I mean, it was a wonderful setup. Like, I was just on this hot streak when I first started, and then all these failures started happening, and I kind of wish it was the other way around, you know? You're just not prepared for when it starts failing. See, another thing I tell people when they ask me, well, how do I get into hunting and how do I get started? I'm like, put your weapon up and go sit in a blind or go sit in a tree stand, and you just watch the animals. This is what bow hunting presents to you at times, and it's not because you don't have enough experience, because people that do still make these mistakes. Everybody needs to hear that. This is Jessica Byers with Follow Her Arrow. You are listening to Living Country in the City, episode 61.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
Hey y'all, welcome to episode 61 of Living Country in the City. Want to say a big thank you to all y'all who make this podcast possible, particularly Sawyer Products for sponsoring this podcast. And I'll tell you what, I really don't like ticks, and I especially don't like Lyme disease and the whole host of other crap that they carry. And I just got back from my Texas hog hunt, and between crawling around in the high grass and seeing what's scurrying all over the bellies of those hogs, I'm just super glad I brought my Sawyer permethrin bug repellent. You know, this stuff is scent-free, perfect for hunters, and keeps all those nasty, creepy crawlies off y'all. Now, Sawyer's a household name. They've been doing this for 30 years, and they make a whole host of simple, reliable products that are designed to keep y'all in the backcountry. So check them out at Sawyer.com or on my partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners. Also, pretty much every morning of my hunt, whether sitting in the blind, walking around, or just having breakfast, I'll tell y'all, these turkeys were just lighting up. I don't know anyone that wouldn't get excited about spring turkey season after hearing all that yelping and gobbling. And while some of these toms are hot enough pretty much to come into here, bird, you're going to need some quality calls to be consistently successful. And that's why I want to make sure y'all know about my good buddies over at T3 Custom Calls. You know, these guys are purists when it comes to turkey calls, and they hand make each and every one of their calls from specifically selected cuts of wood. And they'll even do custom orders for y'all. And I'll tell you what, if you want that premium sound, you've got to pick up a premium call. And as a special offer for listeners of the podcast, y'all can get 10% off all orders placed on the T3 website through the end of March by using code LIVINGCOUNTRY. Give them a follow on socials or check them out at t3calls.com, or you can find them all on our partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners. Now, getting to this week's episode, as I mentioned, I just recently got back from a week out in Central Texas hunting hogs with Jess and Braxton Byers, and I'll tell you all that I've never had such a fun time in my life. But, you know, it was really a roller coaster as well. You know, before I left, I sat down a bit with Jess to recap the week and talk about some of the lessons we both learned, and really hope you all enjoy this one and find something useful along the way. Let's get to it. This sucker started. I am here in Texas. Flew in for a little bit of hog hunting with the one and only Jessica Taylor Byers. Follow her arrow. How you doing?
Hey. I'm glad you finally came to the best state ever. It's been fun. We've had a hell of a week. And
is it a state or a nation? I thought it was a nation all to itself, pretty much.
You're damn right it is. No, I'm just kidding. I do love Texas, but I will always say my heart is in the mountains, as y'all have probably heard 1,000 times on every podcast I've ever done. But no, it's always fun having people out. It's totally different here, and I think what I love most about this state is you can go all over it, and you feel like you're there's such different terrain everywhere you go. So you were lucky enough to kind of experience the start of what we call the hill country, which is the closest thing to the mountains that we have in our state, and it is absolutely beautiful. I've always said if I was going to live anywhere in Texas long term, this is the type of terrain that I want to be in. So I'm very grateful to be here, and it was cool chasing pigs with you all week. It was fun. It was definitely a week to remember.
So now, since the last time we talked, I'll have to look up the episode number. I think it was something like in the 20s. I think
Have
it
I been
was
on your show once or twice?
just once.
Okay, I
Just
can't
once.
even remember. It's been a while, though,
Yeah.
for sure. It feels like I've been on more than once because we've kept in touch since that show. But
Yeah, for sure. And but there's been some big changes since the show. You've moved out here. Y'all are working on a new ranch, and that's where we did our hunting, right?
yeah, so we used to live in a really, really small farm town. I guess for any listeners, if you happen to know what Holland, Texas is, there's not a whole lot there. But now we're living between Lampasas and Burnett. So we're actually in town at the coffee shop in Lampasas. This is where I come to do, work out and for all my mail and everything. But we live about 25 miles outside of Lampasas. And we're sitting on 21,000 acres. The north gate puts us in Lampasas. The south gate puts us in Burnett. And then our house actually sits in a town called Tao. So it's just a huge piece of property. And Braxton is what moved us out here. He was in construction for over 10 years and just, it was never his passion. And the outdoors is what he lived for. It's what he dreamed of. And we just decided, if you were to die tomorrow, you would have never lived. I should say you would have never felt like you truly lived a life that you wanted to live. And you don't have to hate your job. There's this idea that, a job is like something you're supposed to despise every day. And I truthfully, there's a saying that you'll never work a day in your life if you find something you really love. And we took a leap of faith, and it was really, really scary. We, got out of the house that we were in Holland and moved away from family, took a big pay cut. Like, it was just a lot of factors that went into it, and it is the best decision we ever made. So now he's the ranch manager of this property, and it's already changed quite a bit, but it's pretty incredible some of the things that they're doing on that property. They're going to offer a little bit of everything because there's lake frontage, there's Colorado River frontage. Everything from, like you said, the turkey hunting, the deer hunting, hog hunting, even predator hunting, and then then you get into the water stuff. We have the duck hunting is amazing, and Lake Buchanan is one of the best lakes in our state for fishing. So, got a little bit of everything. We live on a little pot of gold. So I'm serious. I feel that anybody who gets to come out and experience it is very lucky, and I'm just glad that it worked out. Like, it was such a fun week. I will cherish this time forever.
No, I have to say, coming out here was an absolute blast, and I have learned so stinking much. Just so many experiences, we'll get into, I'm sure, the details of the whole week here in a second, but even after the first day, I was like, I walked away feeling like, okay, this trip's already a success, just with the sheer amount I learned and a lot of the, just excitement and all of that. It was definitely a blast, and I appreciate you guys having me out. And
it was fun. It was really fun, and it challenged me too. Braxton's usually one that guides, and I'm traveling the world by myself and getting to hunt a little bit of everywhere. And I hunt our property as much as possible when I'm home, but he's typically the one that's taking care of all the hunters. So, you really test your own personal knowledge when you begin to teach somebody else those things. And I think in a lot of ways it's intimidating for me to, for a lot of hunters that I guess I'm a little hesitant to talk about things that I know or that I've learned over the years, but that was one of the more gratifying things, is having someone, you're like a total sponge. I can just see you soaking up every second of it, and really listening and adapting to all the different ways that we attempted to get, close the gap on these hogs. And I just can appreciate that hunger to know more, instead of you getting complacent, like you're so new to it that you just love it and you eat it up. And I couldn't imagine, I guess I'm kind of spoiled in that way now, because I felt like I was actually doing something. Whereas, a lot of times I'm like, I feel like the one that needs to be trying to learn more and fine tune my skills. And I've always said though, any of my audience, I feel a lot more confident talking to people who don't know everything. You know what I mean? Who have that like, oh, I'm the best hunter ever. So it was cool. And, I started to really, it put in perspective what I do and don't know too. Like, man, I need to work on that a little bit, or I've got that down. And anyway, I learned just as much as you did. In other words, it was definitely a two-way street. And so thank you.
Well, I really feel like over the course of this week, we put in a lot of time. I mean, every morning, every evening, and most of the time, the middle of the day, we were either shooting bows or doing something to prep for, one of the hunts. And
sure.
In
the late nights, like so for everybody listening, he originally was supposed to come in February.
Yeah.
So then the time, with daylight savings, it like kind of threw everything off, because I'm used to getting in way earlier, having dinner, and getting a decent amount of sleep before you get up the next day. So it was like blow and go, constant. Most nights what we were eating at 10:30 or something, in bed by 12:30 or 1, and get up at 5. So man, it was like jam packed. I can't even believe the week's over right now. Actually, when I think about it, it just went by so fast. And yeah, it was during the day. It's like, take a nap. Yeah, that sounds great, but we need to be shooting. We need to get, make sure our confidence is up. I mean, I'm planning for trips too, so it's just as important. Even though I wasn't hunting this week behind the weapon. Well, I guess I did actually once.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was jam packed. I mean, we literally had 2 or 3 things we wanted to get done. This podcast was one of them. Here we are, like last minute at a coffee shop, trying to squeeze it into our week because we didn't have any time.
And thankfully my flight was delayed, or else we'd be
on
doing
the road.
This in the car.
Yeah.
Which I've done those before as well, so it's
right.
It works. But yeah, no, I mean to pretty much, we were up at 5 every day this week. I mean, we didn't skip a day. We'd be up at 5, out the door 6:30 to get to the stand by 6:30.
6:15 was, I think one day was 6:30, but 6:15 was pretty much like the latest. 6 o'clock was ideal, but it worked out either way.
And we'd be there till 9 or 10, depending on the stand and how the hogs were moving.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Even we were out. We even did a little spot and stock midday one of the days, and then
to give y'all like a kind of an overview. I wanted him to experience as many different ways of hunting hogs as possible. So the only thing that he didn't get to do is I really wanted you to experience running dogs. Like, people have mixed opinions about that, but it didn't work out. But so we sat in blinds in the morning, and then. I think there was one morning we got out early and we're like, we're just going to go chase them, just, spot and stalk. But the evenings was, I think, the most jam-packed and most exhilarating. Just, when they're feeding naturally and you're not baiting, in Texas you can bait, there's so many different ways you can hunt hogs, but in the evening when they're feeding out in the fields, like, they're just more relaxed, there's nothing unnatural about that setting. So you can, as long as you're stealth-like, you can close the gap and really get them where they're not alert. As long as you play the wind well, to me, that's a more ideal way to hunt hogs, and it's just more gratifying, period. But it is absolutely necessary to hunt them in multiple ways in this state, and I had somebody comment the other day, actually, just a little side trail, on I took a shot and I used the wrong pin. I missed a hog, and they were like, why'd you have to go and jump on its back before you took the shot? And I, in that response, because he was saying, well, if there's such a bad problem, why aren't you flinging arrows way back, far away? And I'm like, man, if you really want to like put a dent in the hog population, bow hunting is not the way to do it. I mean, you need to be gun hunting, you need to be night vision hunting, you need to be helicopter hunting, trapping, blowing them.
You
You can
legally,
blow them.
like, blow them up?
Yeah, you can use tannerite on them. Like, you can, I mean, I would say running dogs is the most efficient way. Unless you have those traps where it notifies your phone and you can drop it. You can drop the trap down on them. You know, a lot of people just, unless you're living it and seeing the damage that they do and how quickly they populate, this probably sounds like really bizarre. Like, how do you even call that hunting? But, I mean, however you look at it, it's conservation. Like, they are.
Well, they're non-native species, aren't they?
They're, I don't even know. I mean, obviously the Russian, like a lot of the boars that have that real like ridge look on their back, the hair standing up, they have a lot of Russian in them. Obviously they were brought in, but I don't know. A lot of them are just.
I might be crazy, and I mean, somebody feel free to email me and correct me, or maybe I'll just do a Google search. And I remember somebody saying there's like one native hog species to the United States, and then like everything else was like brought in, and I can't remember exactly what that was, but
yeah.
I think most places though, especially where they've kind of interbred with a lot of domestic
yeah
hogs,
it's just like a domestic, like, gone wild. I mean, I don't really, my husband can explain it better. I'm not like a pro, and when you get down to like the details of it, I just know that they produce so fast, and they never, I mean, it's still one of the best things for me to, like, I love chasing them as much as I did when I first started hunting. So it's always fun. It's always necessary. And bow hunting, you're never going to put a dent in them the way that you need to. So that's why a lot of times we'll go out with night vision with guns. Although I'm pretty stoked to try that new light that I caved and bought the other day. I mean,
I was a little bummed we didn't end up doing that.
I know. I need to, I'm going to test it like ASAP. I'm going to crank it out and see if I can chase one. But what it is for people listening is, and this is, I don't even know what the brand is. It doesn't matter. It's no sponsored post, but it replaces your stabilizer, and there's a trigger on the grip of your handle that you can turn on. It turns onto a light. So imagine your stabilizer has a light on the end of it. You can choose a green or red bulb, so that they're not as spooked when you turn it on. And the way the bow tech described it is you just kind of like lightly touch your trigger finger to kind of like get the hogs accustomed to it. And if they're not spooked, turn it on all the way. You're going to have to put a little light on your sight to illuminate your pins more. And there you go. You've got a nighttime setup, and you can chase hogs all night long. So never done it. I've only done red and green lights like over baited areas to where you just wait for them to come in pretty much and do what you can. But to chase them with a bow it's different. And a lot of people think, like, when they see my nighttime pictures with hogs, they assume that I got it with my bow in the dark, and that is incorrect. I've never shot one with my bow in pitch black like that. So we'll see. I'll have to send y'all pictures when it happens.
New hunting toys to try out.
Yes,
that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we definitely got into some hogs this week in a few different ways. Probably experienced just about every, we tried a lot of different types of hunting, and probably, experienced just about everything that could happen one way or the other throughout the week. And I keep wanting to say weekend because it feels like it went by so quick all of a sudden. But that first day we went out, and I flew in, we had a nice dinner, and next morning we went out and we sat a blind, and
the honey hole.
that was a
they
that was
came
a nice
in like
one.
Clockwork. It never happened like that again.
Yeah, it was at a feeder, and they came in probably about half an hour or so before the feeder. Yeah.
So they came in before, but dang near every kernel of corn was gone by then already. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking they're not going to hang around, and I don't remember. You know what? It's gone. It seems like forever ago, but it doesn't. I don't know how to. Did they? I can't remember if did you take the shot and they spooked, or they spooked before?
So they came in. I remember they came in, and I just, I was heart's pounding. And
He was amped, y'all. He was shaking like a leaf. It was so funny.
I had so much adrenaline going.
He could not control it.
Oh, man, it was insane. So
That's how it should be, though.
yeah. So I got, and then drawing, people talk about it, but, you always want to practice your shooting eventually. You want to get as good as you can in the best conditions, but then, practice your shooting as best you can from the position you're going to be shooting in. So if you're going to be hunting from a blind, you better get used to practicing drawing and shooting from a sitting position.
Yes, and I should have drilled that into you, and I didn't. I forgot. But you did great. There wasn't an issue.
It was definitely
you struggled a little bit.
The adrenaline did not help at all.
Sure.
You may think people lift cars on adrenaline. Well, drawing a bow back in a blind when you are so amped, it's like you just took 2 scoops of Yeti.
So it works it can do both. It can do both. I've experienced both. I would say 80 to 90% of my hunts, I feel like a Hulk. I'm like, why am I not drawing 10 pounds more than this?
Yeah.
But then I've also had a bobcat in front of me, and I couldn't, cleaning itself at 15 yards, I could have shot it all day, couldn't draw my bow back. I mean, I tried and tried and tried, and I was like, you know what? Guess this is just the message. I'm supposed to sit here and enjoy the show, and I did. And so it does work. It's not one way or the other. I don't know what it is in those moments that, which way it goes, but for sure it was adrenaline.
Definitely, though. I remember pulling that back, and I was like, oh, this isn't so bad, and I got to maybe that last, 4 to 6 inches drawing that bow back, and I'm like, I'm not totally convinced I'm going to make this, and I remember it was sheer force of will that I got that last bit of the bow back and hit that back wall. And I think that first one was a 40-yard shot,
which is a long shot for your first animal. I mean,
yeah.
I guess Midwest hunters, they're going to have a different opinion about that. When you come to Texas, 20, 25, 30 yards is it's normal. I mean, if you want to take longer shots, you can on a spot and stalk. Yeah, we can get within 60 yards and you can shoot one, but it's not necessary. You know what I mean? I guess that's the point. It's it's not necessary to do that. So, but they just weren't giving you another chance.
Yeah, where the blind was placed, they would get closer, but they were behind. They would go behind that big old tree. There's a big old bush, and then. So they camp out at that 40 yards too. They'd anywhere closer, they were moving around, milling about. But there was that one spot at 40 yards where they'd sit and they'd stop, and there must have been some corn left there because they'd stop and they'd feed for a minute. And I was like, I've been practicing out to 60. I felt comfortable out there, and obviously I'd never shot at an animal before, but so who knows what's going to happen. But I'm hitting softball sizes at 40 easy.
Yeah.
And so I took the shot, and I remember I don't think you were ready for me to take the shot either, because I remember
I jumped.
I remember seeing you jump out of the corner of my eye. It kind of made me laugh, but saw that arrow fly, and it startled the pigs, but I definitely did not hit one. I think I may have just grounded it out.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of grass there too.
So the grass was super tall. I did not realize how much it had grown. The other thing is some of our setups, you don't have a direct shot at the feeder. Some people only set up their shots directly at the feeder, but we had a huge cedar tree blocking the feeder. So it was kind of, that feeder shoots corn way off of it. You don't have to get right up underneath. In other words, the animals don't have to get right underneath it. It's going to be, I would say, a radius of 10 yards it's throwing, maybe even 15. So they do, and they don't want to go right up on top of it. And so I think you'd have had a lot more opportunity had that cedar tree not been between the feeder and our blind. But it was just that's just another way to hunt them, where take the shot where they do happen to move out in that, that outside of it, and you're not going to it's not going to be as, I don't want to say easy, but they're going to stay closer to where the corn is focused, and so you might get a few kernels out there. But it was just weird how they didn't want to come. I swear, animals just have this. Well, they do. They know. They just know. They just know because 40 yards. I mean, you should have had a 20-yard shot all day at that feeder, and there's just something about it that they didn't like, and then the grass was tall. It wasn't ideal. So
yeah, I mean, it wasn't the most ideal shot. It was something I thought I could make,
but it's so cool that that's your first morning, and that's literally, I think that's the most we ever saw.
Oh, definitely.
Like they were everywhere.
In any of the mornings, that was definitely the most we saw, and
you got spoiled.
Yeah, I definitely got spoiled that first day, and and then the feeder went off, and they came back in, but then they never gave us. I mean, they came back into that 40 yards, but that was the closest even with the corn there. That was pretty much the closest they got, unless they were behind that cedar.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you before we go on. I'll tell you, if as a new bow hunter, I mean, you want to talk about the perfect way to start. Like, I mean,
I'll always say that to anybody. They may, I don't want to hunt over a
hogs
feeder.
in general, but like, I mean, just to, I mean, people, we talked about it a little bit. People have their opinions, one way or the other about feeders, but, and I'm probably not gonna hunt a deer or an elk, any other animal over a feeder.
In most places, it's not legal anyway.
Yeah.
It's just Texas.
But hogs, I honestly, I'm not going to take an unethical shot at a hog. I don't want a hog to suffer. I don't want any of this stuff. But, they need to be taken care of.
They need to be thinned out,
They need to be thinned out.
But what's so cool about the whole situation, too, is that I mean, everybody knows there's a lot that goes into bow hunting. You're having so much to think about, especially as a first-timer. And it's just it's nice that you can range the feeder and maybe a couple things around it, so you've got your range under control. It's like it eliminates some of those things that make you on edge and
rushed.
Very rushed, yeah. It's not as much instinct as, like your spot and stalk hunts where you're able to, close the gap. And it's taking when you draw back, I don't care what anybody says. When you draw back for the first time on a live animal, when all you've ever done is target or practice on foam, it takes over you. I mean, obviously, you physically it was showing on you. I mean, you were just shaking like a leaf, and it's just nice to only have to focus on making a clean shot. You don't need to range again. You don't need to be worried about them looking up and seeing you. You're in a blind that's covering you, brushed in really, really well. There's just a lot of factors, and so you really don't have. If they come in, then the wind's not an issue either. You know what I mean? Like you take that out of the equation. So it's just, I think it's a great way to start, and I will take that to my grave. I wish everybody could hunt hogs for the first time, to just release an arrow on them before you go to anything else. And actually, I didn't start hog hunting with a bow, so it's funny that I'm even saying that, but. I am a huge advocate for that. Like, do it.
It was hog hunting in general. I think is an amazing way to start, but then in the blind at a feeder, like you said, it just eliminates so much that's gonna give you grief or cause you to rush, cause you to lose focus later. And it's you can have a little chatter back and forth. With if you're sitting with someone, there's just it makes things a lot more comfortable, and
it's great for kids too, because I mean, anybody knows. So when you think about the bigger picture with hunting, you're wanting to get more people involved as possible. Well, where does that start? Well, hopefully it starts with kids. I mean, it doesn't always happen that way, but their attention span is not like most adults. Well, heck, I've even hunted with adults that cannot sit still and stay without something in front of them. They just can't. They can't do that.
I get like that now and again.
They fidget. They get, it takes a different kind of patience. But when you have a kid that's getting into it, if they don't have something to keep it fun for them, to bring animals in so they can at least see them, it's just hard to make them want to keep doing it. So it's also great in that way. Beginners, kids. I mean, I'm saying this and I still hunt that way. I hunt a little bit every way, but I mean,
people always talk about duck hunting because it's such a social thing, and
everyone camaraderie. Yeah,
this is it's not quite to that extent, but this felt a lot like that in that we'd say, obviously, we're not like, talking really loud or anything, but, we're sitting and whispering, and like, if you really want to, you can, and you got some service, you can pull out your phone and check an email or something while you're waiting.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want to do that when it's pitch black out and you got a big old light shining in the blind. But,
right.
If it's a little bit slower and you're waiting for that feeder to go off, you've got time to do stuff and talk, and we had some great conversations in the blind, and I almost kind of wish we had headsets on for some of those.
I know. A lot of moments like that this week.
But, I mean, whatever you think about feeder hunting, I really don't care at this point, because it is a great way to get people started, especially with bow hunting.
There's so many things that can go wrong. So with bow hunting, so it's a great way to eliminate those. But the last thing I want to say about that is, like any situation, if you want to have an opinion about it, at least experience it before you push that onto somebody. Mm-hmm. So for anybody listening, if you haven't done it and you're someone that puts it down and has a very strong opinion, I hope that you are someone that has experienced it, and I hope you won't push anybody else away from doing it that way if it means it's their first and maybe their only opportunity. Somebody says, hey, come hunt with me, this is how I do it. Let them make that decision. Don't tell them it's wrong. Anyway, that's all I want to say about it.
I've noticed most of the people that talk crap about anything in general are people that haven't done it and won't even try it, and not even from a perspective that they think it's unethical or anything like that. They're just, I don't know.
I don't know either. But my thing is, if you try it once and you hate it, you don't ever have to do it again. Period.
And honestly, if you're gonna put something down, you may hate it, but it may be good. You have to look at it from a perspective of not everyone is you. So you may be the biggest, baddest backcountry hunter, Cam Haines, whoever, hauling a whole elk out on your back, on your back hole kind of a thing. Yeah, you may not want to sit in a blind. That may not be your thing, but
it's definitely not Cam Haines' thing. I've talked to him about it.
But it's like, look at it from the perspective of the person that you're encouraging to get into hunting, not necessarily from your perspective.
What's appropriate for them? What would keep them coming back? If
somebody else is looking for that backcountry experience and that's what they want, then probably don't recommend sitting on a feeder in a blind to them.
Yeah.
But, someone's like, hey, I'm just not sure about this. I kind of want to figure it out and get into it, and I don't really have any experience, which is a lot of my audience. Yes, this is an awesome way to do it. But
see, another thing I tell people when they ask me, well, how do I get into hunting and how do I get started? I'm like, put your weapon up and go sit in a blind or go sit in a tree stand, and you just watch the animals. It gives you a way to even just watch their behavior and how they interact with each other, interact with its surroundings, and I mean, you don't have to be pulling back on them to go and just sit in there and watch and learn, what they're like. So,
well, and you also, that teaches you how much movement you can get away with, how quiet you have to be, how to play the wind, all of that stuff that, is all a lot harder to figure out when you have a weapon in hand. But so drew back on that pig, whiffed the shot pretty hard, and I remember sitting there and I had my chest rig on, and so I'm kind of, it was pretty chilly, so I'm kind of curled up a little bit, bent over, and that chest rig's sitting on my legs, and all I can hear is this because I cannot stop my legs. They are just like, I swear I was about to vibrate myself out of that blind. I was shaking so dang hard. It's unless you've experienced, it's just a funny thing, but it's unless you've experienced it, just having that much adrenaline like running through you, that you physically cannot like stop yourself from shaking. Like it's just, It's like being amped on pre-workout.
And this
almost.
is before you had the lighted knocks too, so I didn't even see your shot. Like I knew you didn't hit. I could tell by the sound that it didn't hit, but I couldn't see him. So I was so excited when we went to town and got you lighted knocks, and I could actually see your arrow flying. I'm spoiled by that. So, and we never found your arrow. Dang it.
No. Oh well.
I think it's late. I think it's in all that cactus. So we'll just let it stay there.
Yeah. There's a couple of arrows on the property that have my numbers on them, but we won't talk about that too much. Well, yeah, no. And then that night, Braxton took me out for a little spot and stalk out of the dry lake, and we went and sat down and started doing some glassing. And about 5 minutes in, I mean, we sat down and
y'all had a jam-packed session.
Oh yeah, that first day was spoiled the hell out of me. I mean, 5 minutes in, we sat down after about 5 minutes in. I mean, 3 or 4 come walking out, and they came in so fast. Like we heard the brush crackling. I barely had time to even grab my bow and get an arrow knocked, let alone like draw back before they were up and out and across the lake bed. And so got to put on my first stalk, and got all the way across the lake bed. They got into some brush across the way, and we got downwind of them and got around, and they were coming through, and oh man, walks in right at 25 yards, big old sow. Like this thing was a monster. And
was she at 30 yards? Is that the one that was at 30 yards?
I think she was right at 25. She walked in. It was that first day. And he's like, okay, come on, come around right over here. We're whispering, and I get in position, and everything's good. He's like, okay, she's going to come in right at 25 yards. Range, the only spot where she could walk through. And I'm bringing up, I got my wrist released, and bringing it up to get it on my D-loop.
Yeah.
And she walked right as she walks in. She puts her head down to start feeding. Like it's like the perfect window. It's about as ideal of a shot you can get. And my wrist release slips, and I can't remember if it hit just one of the string holder or whatever, one of my arrows or what it was. But it was just this little click right against it, and her head pops up. She stares right at us, and both of us are just. I mean, neither of us moved.
Did she grunt? Do you remember?
Yeah, oh yeah, she grunted and took off, and it was just that slight little click. Makes me want to rubber coat my wrist release, but that's a whole different story. But I definitely learned my lesson with that one, and whole rest of the week, man, I kept a grip on that wrist release. Anytime I would move, that thing was never hanging loose, and it's lessons learned, and
that's the only way you're going to learn.
Yeah.
In a way, I'm kind of grateful that all these things happen, because when everything goes perfect, you're just like, oh, like this is great, like this is easy, and then the first thing that happens, you're not prepared for that failure, and you just like it's like a rock bottom. It's so great, and I think somebody else even commented on a couple of your posts and mentioned that it's so valuable early on in your hunting career for you to experience these things.
Yeah.
And just adapt to them. Like it's going to make you so much better than for someone that when it happens perfectly. And truthfully, I say that because that's how it was for me. Like Braxton's like, this doesn't ever happen. Like I was just on this hot streak when I first started, and then all these failures started happening. And I kind of wish it was the other way around, you know, because you're just not prepared for when it starts failing. So
well, the expectations get set and the bar set so high.
Heck yeah, you're telling me, man. Especially for someone that's hard on themselves. I mean, I really did. I admired how quickly you were able to, like, snap back and grab, pick up and keep going through all these lessons that you were learning. I mean, like literally back to back to back. And it's just, it's going to make you better, even though it sucked on so many times that these things happen.
There's definitely some rough times. I mean, day 2, we just about got skunked the whole day. For the morning, we didn't see a single, because that was the day the blind blew away. We showed up in the morning, and the blind was probably about
over. We had
30, 40 yards from where it should have been.
Yeah, we had some really strong winds earlier, like 30 to 40 mile per hour winds, and I knew exactly where that blind was. I helped Braxton set that. I helped him set up probably about half the ones that were out that we hunted, and I mean, it's a stout stand. Like, I cannot believe that it did, but we had some pretty strong winds, and I told him I want to stay out of there. Like, we knew the feeders were good. We knew that hogs were coming in there. Like, let's just stay out of there. I know where to go. And then, sure enough, blinds laid over. And so, but that night, isn't that night when we got 20 to 25 yards for two pigs?
Yeah, that was.
So we didn't get skunked
because
that was a fun night. And I found my first shed. I was so excited. Yeah. Like, that was awesome.
Yeah, we got out there, and I mean, we were both pretty bummed out. We were just sitting there, and we're like, well, it was pretty much we were about to walk back, I think, and you caught a little bit of motion. I mean, it
tiny. It was so dark.
Right at the end of gray light,
maybe. That black dot is moving. Like, that's a hog.
Like, I remember we were debating back and forth for a while about it.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know, and then you're like, no, it's definitely. You're like, no, it's definitely moving. So.
And and you didn't have your contacts in.
That's what it was.
That's what it was. So because I was like, hey, is it moving? Am I crazy? And you had forgot to put your contacts in. But I was like, well, it didn't matter if you didn't get a shot. Like, so many times, it's just good to put a stalk on an animal and learn from that. Like, you don't have to draw back. You don't have to have a weapon. See how close you can get to them by playing the wind and using your surroundings, the different elevations and the terrain. Use that, utilize it to your benefit, and see how you do. If you have a weapon, that's just the cherry on top.
And I mean, we closed. We were several hundred yards away. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
and
it was a sprint.
Hauled over there.
It was a sprint. Sometimes you have to.
That was so much fun.
And when it gets to that kind of light, I mean, you can really book it. And if the wind's pretty good and dark enough, you can even make a little bit more noise because they can't see. Their hearing isn't great. It's their smell. You just have to get past their scent.
Yeah, we got in 25 on them about, and then there was the second one came in. We didn't see that second one right away and pushed that first one right at us. I remember we're both looking like that.
It's literally coming up the same trail, like in my face as I'm crawling on the ground. I'm like, this is gonna literally kiss me on the face. Like, get your bow ready. But no, she took off.
Yeah, she ended up swerving. But yeah, that was a fun night. And then walking back, I mean, that couldn't have been more perfect finding that shed on the way back. Like, we just happened at the right moment.
You're the only one that saw my reaction when I found that shed. I got a little amped up, y'all. I've found sheds before, but not on this property, and I've been out walking miles and miles trying to find my very first one since we moved out there. Braxton's found a handful because he's out, on the property all the time, and he covers so much ground, and I just don't spend as much time, but when you go out with an effort to find one, and I've come up short every time. So I was pumped that I almost stepped on that one walking back with a spotlight. Like, what are the chances? It was awesome.
There may have been some unladylike cheering.
Yeah. May or may not have chunked the shed across the field and said some yeahs and a...
I saw you spiking that thing. I'm like, I'm going to watch this because I just had this bad feeling. I just swear it didn't, but I had this bad feeling it was going to, take a weird bounce and, fly off, and we were just never going to find it again. She's going to be so bummed out.
Highest of highs and lowest of lows. That's...
Oh, man.
I can't expect anything else with bow hunting, though. My goodness.
All right, let's take a quick break right there just to hear a word from one of my partners. All right, y'all, we all know there's folks out there who are successful year after year rocking a set of bargain bin Walmart camo. However, a full layering system of premium hunting clothes can make a huge impact on your comfort level when you're spending time deep in the backcountry, and can really be the difference between going longer and harder or just going home. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I personally can't afford to drop $3,000 or even more on a full set of premium hunting gear. Now, that's why I'm excited to tell y'all about Scree Gear. Not only is Scree as capable and durable as any of the other premium lines out there, it also comes in at a price point that won't leave you too broke to put in for tags. Scree's patterns use the science behind perception and fractal concealment and have been designed by one of the foremost concealment experts out there. He's designed for militaries, law enforcement, and special forces in the US and around the world. Not only are their patterns incredibly versatile for any sort of terrain, but their layering systems allow you to pack a minimal amount of gear for maximum effect. So whether you're side-hilling across rocky debris in the baking desert sun or crawling over snow-covered deadfall high up in the frozen Rockies, Scree's versatile layering system has you covered. Literally. And if that's not enough, for that added layer of confidence, Scree offers an outfitter and military discount, a limited lifetime warranty on all their gear, and free returns on new gear until you find the perfect fit. Even better, you can get 10% off all orders from the Scree store by using code COUNTRY10. Check out that Scree discount along with discounts from other awesome outdoor companies by visiting my partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners. Let's see, and then day 3, we went out,
I don't remember.
We saw the ones at a distance. Those were the ones that just disappeared. We went out in the morning. Was that Mountain View?
Mountain View is the one where the blind rolled over.
Okay. Then
Cliffhanger?
It was Cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So all the blinds have clever names,
yeah.
If you haven't figured that out by now. But yeah, we went to Cliffhanger. We went in, and we had that group of 4 or 5 come in.
Wait, Cliffhanger's where you shot that one. Cliffhanger's where you shot your first hog.
Is it?
Yeah.
You're jumping ahead. You're ruining the story here.
Sorry, guys.
No.
Worst storyteller ever. I'm trying to think, because we went to Mountain View.
Hog Bottom.
We went to...
That was the south wind. It was Hog Bottom.
Spaceship. What?
Hog Bottom. That was the one.
Yes, Hog Bottom. So, oh my gosh, y'all, this blind, like, you just roll up to it, check your cameras, and it just reeks of hogs. Well, it did when we checked them. I couldn't really smell them when we went in there, but they're in there nonstop. All the ground around it is just rutted up. I mean, it's a honey hole for hogs, and it's so obvious. And I mean, I'll let you tell it. Those 4 that came in.
We were sitting there, and it was a 4 or 5 that came in.
100 yards away.
Sow and some piglets, I think, and they were probably 100 yards away, and the wind was perfect. I mean,
wind was literally perfect. I have no idea what spooked them. And
yeah, they came in and they started milling about, and boom, we're gone.
Well, Braxton describes it perfectly too. He's like, we're sitting in our living room at the house, and he's like, if somebody's in this house, if something comes in our door, you may not see it, but you feel like something's not right, because it's your home. This is where you live. This is what you experience every day. He's like, it's no different for animals when you're going into that area. He's like, yeah, the wind's perfect, nothing's changed, but they know something's not right. And he said there's just something about it, and he's like, it's inexplainable, but that's why they're, it's even so much more fun, because it's not some cakewalk either. So I just have to think about that, like, even when the wind is perfect. And we walked a long way too. We were being extra careful that morning. We got in early. I mean, whatever, just didn't work out, but we didn't get skunked.
No, we didn't get skunked. And I mean, that just happens sometimes. You don't always have the option. Animals are animals. They're going to do what they do, but...
And those are pretty good sized ones too, so they don't get that, like, I guess with any species, they always say they don't get that big from being dumb. Yep. And this time was no different.
Yeah, I can't remember all what happened that night. That may have been the night that, you know what? That was the night I was having some trouble.
Yes. Your bow. Your bow was shooting low and left?
It was, well, so I went in and I was taking some practice shots, and I remember I was trying some different stuff, and the bow was just shooting low and left. It was acting weird, and
it messed with you mentally. That's what it was.
I was getting frustrated, and it messed with me. It was screwing with me, and you know how it is when you get frustrated. You're already shooting bad. You need to just stop.
Yeah.
And instead, I just kept shooting and getting more frustrated, and I ended up just chunking an arrow straight into a rock. Shattered the thing, destroyed a brand new broadhead, and I got so far into my head, I finally had to say, I'm like, I need to sit tonight out. And
I respect that. Like, yeah. And I even told Braxton, I was like, I said I couldn't go out if my bow was like that. Like, there's no way, because it was prime time. We needed to be leaving, and it just wasn't right.
Yeah.
But I was definitely not going to influence you one way or the other. But when you said that, I was thinking, good for you, out of respect for the animal, and just even you. Like, I wouldn't want you to make a bad shot and just start questioning everything. Like if you don't go into it confident, you're already behind. Like you've already lost.
And that's the thing. You know, once again, we're saying, okay, yeah, they may just be pigs. We want to get rid of them, but I still don't want to make an ethical shot. Or I still want to make an ethical shot.
Yes.
And I still want to make absolutely sure that the animal is not suffering as much as possible. And so, you know, if I'm not gonna be able to do that, and you know, my mind wasn't going to be where it should be anyway, so the likelihood of me actually getting to a spot where I could take a shot wasn't very high.
Right.
But so, since I wasn't going to be hunting, I
went out.
Somebody's got to get those pigs.
Well, when Braxton walked up, he said, "All right, get your stuff, Sam." And you're like, "I think I'm going to stay in." And Braxton's like,
"Well, get your stuff, Jess.
Jess, get your stuff. We're going." I was like, "Okay." And at this point, I'm sitting here thinking we're all just going to stay in, you know?
Yeah.
I did tell him over by the other lodge. I said, "I think I might just go around, like, just go glass and, you know, see if I can see anything." And then I was like, well, it's getting so late. Not going to happen. So when he said that, and when you were like, I don't care, because I didn't want it to be where
you kind of looked at me like,
I certainly don't want to have a guest in my house that's, you know, you were the focus all week. It was 100% about you, and feel like I'm just pushing you aside to go. Because we only had the intent of taking you out that night, and just because you weren't going didn't mean we were going to go. Like, that was not the plan at all. But no, and you were like, heck yeah, I don't care. I said, you know, the likelihood of this even being successful is very slim at that point, because we needed to be leaving, you know, earlier. But
I just had a feeling, though. I knew the second you guys left, I was standing there. I'm like, they're going to get some tonight. I have a feeling.
That hunt was so fast, and I don't even know how to explain it. It was crazy. We had to literally sprint across that field and crawl, and he was in his snake boots and a black sweatshirt. And I'm like, snake boots, I guess, is smart this time of year. I mean, I try to wear them as much as possible, but when you're trying to crawl through the fields, snake boots up to your knees is not exactly ideal. Yeah. He's wearing a black sweatshirt. I'm like, great camo. Like, this is totally not going to happen, you know? And then he was like, no, I'm going to pull my hood over my head, and so that way when we're crawling and I'm on all fours, I look like a pig. I was like, oh, okay. Like, that's like,
I guess that kind of makes sense, yeah.
Like, I'm over here like, oh, okay. I'm always learning more from him, you know, and so many weird things work with hunting. It's just a matter of, like, just trying something new. And he's like, no, I think it'll work. And anyway, long story short, I was able to close the gap. Actually, he stayed behind. I crawled in as quickly as I could, because I was like, my pins were getting light. And I got to her. I sat up to draw. She pops her head up, and then she doesn't know what I am, because at this point it's so dark. Like I was saying, that her eyesight's not that good. So she kind of like trots towards me and just like, bam, slams on the brakes, starts grunting. And at this point, I'm already at full draw. Like, I'm going to take a headshot right now, because I would never recommend that for anybody, but I've hunted them for long enough. I was like, and I'm close enough. At this point, I'd ranged her at 40. She trotted into probably 35, and I was just going to headshot her. Well, I let one fly, and she swayed right, spun my arrow, totally missed her. So as she's circling back around, she sees my lighted knock, spooks, runs really quick to the right. I draw again, trying to get my pin on her. She disappears behind the cedar tree. I let down, and it seemed like within 3 seconds she stepped out again, still broadside. I didn't have time to range her, but I could tell from like where she had gone from left to right. I said, it's probably still a 40-yard shot. And I just literally my instinct took over, flung it. That's my longest shot to date too. So that was a huge moment for me, of just letting my instinct take control. Because I'm like no, I need to know the exact yardage, and it doesn't always work well that way, truthfully. I mean, you just learn to adapt to it. Same thing happened with my elk years ago. I didn't have time to range them, and I just had to roll with it. And sometimes it works out better that way. I wouldn't recommend it for like newbies necessarily, but once you do it enough, you start to visually see. Okay, I'm ranging. It might say 30, but it's picking up something closer, and you're unsure. I'm like, okay, just put the rangefinder down and look at it. What does that look like? You shoot your bow enough, and sometimes that's the better way to do it. So
yeah,
I'm always infatuated with people that can say like, oh, 75 yards. I'm like, what? Like I could never, 40 yards in, I can give you a pretty good estimate. But
the more you do it though, like I just noticed even on this trip, after a few times, I was getting closer. I would look at something, I'd be like, oh, that's 30, and it might be 25 or whatever. But sure. I'd notice the distance between my estimations pins. And the rangefinders would be a lot closer than than they used to be. I would look at something and be like, that's 50 yards away, and it's 20.
Yeah, no, and I think the issue that I have too with the excessive ranging, like right before I take the shot, is because I don't shoot so much weight where, like, there's a decent gap in between my 20 and 30 pins. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? For some people, it's like right on top of each other because their bow's that fast or whatever,
Yeah.
Their whole setup is just that way. But I have a gap. I mean, that's what happened on the pig I missed before you came. I shot one and I just used the wrong pin. And a lot of people can put both pins on them and hit. And I don't have that option. So, anyway, that was crazy. That was a very unexpected, successful hunt. And it was fun getting to track it with you. Like, it worked out great.
Well, yeah, I was sitting back at the place. I had just finished up a big old bowl of soup, and I had a nice glass of whiskey sitting there. And I got a call and threw on my jacket and came running out, and we grabbed the lights, and no, that was a blast. 3 of us were out there looking for blood. There was a good amount of blood. She didn't go far at all.
Yeah, I don't know. What did Braxton say? It was literally pitch black, so I couldn't even guess.
I mean,
40 yards?
It was definitely under 80. I mean, so
yeah, it was pretty quick.
I would have guessed maybe 50, 60 yards at most.
Well, anyway, that was fun. And so anyway, back to you, back to the hunter. This isn't about me.
It's about whatever we want it to be about.
The next day would be day 4.
Something like that. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Day 4.
I felt good. That morning.
You felt good, and you took a shot.
Yeah, I just needed to refocus. We got into the blind. Everything felt good about that morning.
I like that setup. That was cliffhanger.
Yeah, that was it was a good blind. I think you gave me a choice between 2 blinds, and I picked that one.
Cliffhanger and cactus.
Yeah, I like Sylvester Stallone, so I chose cliffhanger. And it's really these scientific decisions that make you a successful hunter. But no, it's just that we got to the blind. Like, the morning felt good. I was confident. I needed that night to refocus. And, you having that success, I think, kind of reinvigorated all of us a bit. And the blind was like, the setup was perfect. It just looked good. It smelled. There's so much cedar smell around there that it was masking the scent. Like, everything felt solid about that morning. And we were sitting there, and it was starting to not look that great. We were starting to wonder if anything.
We saw a couple does and yearlings.
Yeah, that's right. The 2 does and a yearling came in.
Yeah.
Which is to some extent, I think, is always kind of nice because it reminds you, it's like, okay, the wind is good.
Oh, yeah, because I can tell you how many times I've been busted by a doe, like ruined my hunt. I mean, sit there and blow and blow and blow, and I was like, man, if she's here, that's a really good sign. So, yeah,
so she
I
walked
felt confident.
By, feeder went off, nothing really happened, and I think we were kind of lax. We were just talking, and I think we
all right.
may have both. I think I was making an Instagram post at the time. We were kind of at the point where okay, another 15 minutes, and we're out. I was writing up an Instagram post, and I look up and I'm like, something's moving. I'm like, oh, it's a deer, because it's where up behind the feeder it goes uphill,
and it's in shadows.
It's a lot of shadows, and so it looked like it was something really tall coming through, because I didn't realize how uphill it was, and it was just this tall shadow coming through. I'm like, oh, deer, and then I'm like, no, pig. It was more like pig.
Yeah.
And I'm like, pig.
Yeah. And I'm like, y'all, I think before I could even get, really look at it, he was already at full draw. Like, you were ready. Your instinct took over big time. Like, I could totally tell.
The part that all of the experiences from the prior days really, I was amazed because I was expecting to be amped again. But I was telling myself, I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I want to remember every instant of this. Because it's hard, I mean, I think anybody that's ever drawn back or let an arrow fly at an animal understands the experience. They don't remember any of it.
Oh, yeah.
They remember starting the draw and then at some point after they release. Like, nothing in between other than maybe a color of a pen or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I need to do this slow and controlled enough that I remember every single bit of this. And I remember the hog came in and was feeding, so I drew back. And, we'd ranged the feeder, we had ranged the trees behind it. And so I got it at... I think it was at 25 again.
25 yard, yeah.
It was right at 25. And I just remember how calm I was and thinking about it and got the pins lined up right on the spot. And I pulled that trigger so slow. I remember every, eighth of an inch that I pulled that trigger on the release back. And it flew, and I remember the sound of it nailing that.
And I saw this
hog.
One. You had your lighted knocks on,
Yeah,
too,
we'd gotten the lighted knocks at that point.
It looked good. I mean, I thought, done deal.
And, man, it sounded like an axe hitting a tree. Mm-hmm. That sound, like I can still hear it in my head. And,
yeah.
It ran off, and there was definitely some unladylike language from me. And, felt like a great shot, and, we let him sit for a while. We saw him walk off, and then there was a little clear spot in the trees. I remember he walked over there, and we saw him stutter step quite a bit. And I honestly thought for a minute he was going to fall right then.
Me too. I did too.
And he kind of wandered off, and so we let him sit for a minute, not sure where he was, just to make sure we didn't push him. We got up, we went look for the arrow, and it was a full pass through. But the arrow was not as red as we would have liked to see.
It looked like it exited further back, and so
we checked the video.
It. I could just tell by smell too. Like, there's a little bit of everything, and I thought, well, I've had shots perfectly broadside in the pump house, and somehow the arrow goes tweaks and goes out further back. I mean, it just happened. So I really didn't think that much of it, but we made the decision. Let's pull out. Let's go have some lunch and give him some time. And I wasn't really that worried about it, truthfully. Yeah. I really wasn't.
Well, I mean, and we watched the video. I had the GoPro going. We pulled it up on the laptop and went frame by frame, watched where that arrow hit. I mean, it may have been, looked maybe a few inches high, but it looked like it was right in the vitals. Mm-hmm. And it's debatable. Like, I know we've gone back and forth about it. I think and if he was, it was minuscule amount quartering towards me.
Because even in my angle, and I was left of you, like it should have been a harsher angle for me, and it really wasn't. Like, I was thinking that's a beautiful broadside shot. Like, he just wasn't turning.
Yeah, and
I'm focusing on that because a lot of people will give you hell for even like a tweak of a slightly quartering towards you, and I'm talking about it was so slight that I don't even know that I would even be saying it was quartering towards you.
I mean, he may have been broadside and just turned his head towards us, kind of a thing, like that minuscule. But best we could guess was that maybe it went in a little high, a little bit at an angle, and then came out through the guts. But we felt good about it, especially with that stutter step. Thought he was just going to drop like a rock. Mm-hmm. So went and grabbed some lunch, grabbed June, the dog, and went back to see if we could track her or track him, I guess, and not a drop of blood. Yeah,
it was. I mean, well, we ended up finding a couple.
When we first started looking, I mean, I think we all both honestly expected to see him just out in the field behind.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of an opening right behind the tree line.
I don't know. That's an unexplainable. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, and we went. I mean, we
I
went
really
down
thought
on.
June was going to put us on the hog too. I really thought, well, even with lack of blood or anything, I just thought you can't. I don't know. You can't have expectations, I guess. But I wasn't even worried about it. I thought she's going to take us to it because it's going to be close enough, regardless if there's blood or not. And it's just one of those things. It's awful.
We found those 1 or 2 drops and got a general direction. I mean, very general, because it was probably 15, 20 yards from where we saw him, where I hit him. And and we found out we spent a good portion of the afternoon searching and had the dog out, and we spent a good portion of time searching for blood, couldn't find any, and then so we just fanned out and hiked all over there. I mean, any possible direction that pig could have gone. We hiked and just.
I was tracking it on Onyx too. Like I was, just so we weren't double covering anything and nothing.
There was absolutely nothing. And it was tough. I mean, it was.
Oh gosh, it killed me. It killed me to watch you because I feel like. If you bow hunted long enough, you know exactly what that feeling is. And to watch someone else go through it for their first time on what could potentially be your first animal was heartbreaking to the point, like I always have something uplifting to say, I feel like, or I try to, and I just didn't even know what to say other than, honestly, the words that were told to me when it happened to me is, it's going to happen again. Don't put your bow down because it's going to happen again. And that's like, to a lot of people, it's like, oh, that's the last thing you should say to somebody. But no, that is the cold hard truth. Like, it will happen, and even on shots that you just don't understand, And then this isn't an opportunity for people to be like, oh, well, you should have been shooting this, and this. I don't care what you say. No product is 100% across the board. The animal's will to live is insane, and I don't know. There's just too many factors. I don't think it's fair to jump to that. I think just to be completely honest and let you know that it's A, that it happens to everybody, and B, that it's going to happen to you again.
Yeah. And
if you can't handle it, then you don't need to bow hunt. That's what I tell anybody. And that's because Braxton told me that. My husband, as I'm like sitting there in tears, he's like, you can put your bow down, but you'll never pick it back up. And if you can't handle it, then you're not meant to bow hunt anyway, And
well, I mean, you're probably not meant to hunt in general, because I had a lot of people reach out to me, and I'm thankful for each and every everyone that was super encouraging about it, and,
for sure.
But a lot of them said it's like, it doesn't just happen with bows, happens with a rifle, and it can happen at any point you think you make a good shot, and especially with something like a hog, that those suckers are. Yeah, I mean, I've come to realize those suckers are tough as hell.
Yeah. For people who haven't hunted them, or even if you haven't hunted them, if you haven't seen them, like seen somebody cleaning them or something, they're fat. Well, first of all, their hair is so coarse it soaks up blood, and then you got that ridiculous layer of fat in between that can seals a lot of entry holes. Like. I mean, it works. It's in their favor, and I've seen it happen a lot. They just seal up, blood everywhere, and they seal up. Yep. And when you're not starting with blood, it's just, I don't know. Having it on camera and seeing that is what it just doesn't have me convinced that he made it. It's why it made it hard to quit looking, because it just looked good on film, and I saw it with my own eyes. What do you do?
Yep. But that was definitely tough, and that, we went out that night. There's a little bit of action that night. Brax and I stocked up on a few hogs, but they just wasn't the best opportunity. There wasn't much cover for us, and we kind of blew a few out, but I don't think my head was fully in it either. I was still a little tore up. But next day we didn't have a ton of luck. Fast forward to last night. And
where did we sit yesterday morning?
Yesterday morning,
we got skunked, didn't we?
We went all the way down to
the falls.
The falls, and
that's usually a great setup.
We had that buck come in that had shed his antlers, and
yeah, that's it.
And there wasn't much other than that.
A really pretty hike.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah, and then last night was the action-packed night. One of the best hunts I've ever been on for sure.
And that was another tough one because you haven't
posted about this yet, have you?
No, I haven't posted about this one. By the time this goes up, I'll probably have a post up about it. But we got out and we walked. We did a bunch of glassing, and we got out to a point, and we found kind of the point we were going to sit and wait because it wasn't that late still. It wasn't prime time yet.
Yeah, they're usually not moving as early as they did last night. I was very shocked. I mean, it caught me off guard.
And we were coming to our point, and you spotted the one coming out. We thought it was just that one at first, and we dropped down and started to move upwind of it, and all of a sudden we saw about another one come out, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the wind was coming across us, and they were from right to left, and they're kind of more on the left, and I'm like, oh God, no! They're going to bust us any second. Let's move left. We got to get downwind right now. We got to hurry. And so once I think we moved about 10 yards and crouched down, and they just came in it was beautiful. It was such an incredible setup.
Yeah, the one came in, and I was going to draw him, and then we see a whole slew more of boar and a bunch of piglets coming down, and we're like, crap, they're just
still more.
I shouldn't say crap, holy crud, there's more coming.
Yeah.
And this is probably short of that first day. I'd say there was more in this group than I'd seen all week, and they're coming down, and we had another, just where they kind of stopped, we had a bush between us, and we were kind of debating, okay, do we move? And
it's that cedar tree, and they were right beyond it, so it would have given you a 20-yard shot all day long.
And
they were behind it.
Were camped there for a while.
And it was cool, too, because we were in the shadows, and they were right outside of it in the sunlight, facing the sun. Their eyesight's already not that great. They're looking into the sun. I was like, this is just incredible. Just sitting there even watching them. I mean, pigs aren't that pretty, but just to watch them and just so calm. They're just in their element. The piglets were playing. I mean, it was a wonderful setup.
And we were about to move.
Yep.
And then they kept feeding, and they came out, and I don't think those two were all that far apart. They came out. You ranged the one at 30 yards.
Yeah. So I've got the rangefinder. I'm ranging one, and I'm thinking he's shooting at. So the setup is you got two pigs running parallel to each other. One's a little bit ahead of the other. And obviously one's closer because of how, they're walking next to each other. So I'm ranging in my head. I'm thinking I'm ranging the first one. In my head, the first one is the closest one. But then when I talk to Braxton or when I've talked to other people, and I should have been more clear with you, I'm kicking myself. When I say the first one, that's always in relation to how close they are. Well, you were thinking the first one furthest to the right.
The furthest was in front a little bit.
In front versus closer. It's just, what is it? Does first mean front or first mean closer? It's just lingo, and I arranged
it's not the first thing on your mind, when you're thinking about that, and
you're like you said, your bow is quick enough. I don't think it would have made a big difference, but it still irritates me.
They were maybe about 2-3 yards apart at most as far as distance, and comes down to it, they stop for a sec, and I pull up, and it was definitely not my heart was racing. It was definitely not as calm of a shot as the day before.
Spot and stock's always that way, though.
Yeah.
And that's, again, back to the feeder. It's a calmer situation. Spot and stock is exhilarating.
And it felt like about 5 minutes, but we had been waiting there for a good, I looked at the video later, and it was a good 15, almost 20 minutes that we were kneeling there. So it's, there's plenty of time to get worked up about it. And I made the shot, and you were looking at the close one. So
I didn't even see your shot.
Neither of us really saw where that shot hit, but That pig, man, he squealed, she squealed. I don't know. I can't remember.
I think
if
it
that
was a
one
sow. I think it was a
boar,
sow, but I'm not really positive.
But that pig squealed, and the group took off to our left, and then that one stopped and stared right at us for a minute, and I'm thinking
it's going to come and like literally walk on us.
That's kind of why I was watching it, and you're like, load another arrow.
Yeah, I'm telling Sam, load another arrow, because that group, the rest of the sounder came around to our left, and I'm talking like a 15-yard shot, like right in your face.
They didn't even know we were. Slowed down, and
they didn't know we were there until they got downwind to our left, just like what I was afraid of in the beginning. And man, it was beautiful.
Arrow, and I swung around, and I remember. I think you kind of thought I was going to keep swinging and get you with that broadhead.
Yeah, I ducked. I just dropped to the ground. We were good. I was ready for it.
And I got that back, and I struggled a little bit getting onto the D loop, and then that once again that last 4 inches I had so much adrenaline going after that first shot. So the shot was a little more rushed than I would have liked, and it was tough to see on the video later. But I think
they were running. You took a running shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I felt like it was just a hard shot.
it was either like right in front of the one or right under it. It was tough to tell. Vertically, it looked pretty good, so I think it just went right in front of the big old sow that was on the run. And
normally I would be like, no, don't take the shot, but I'm like, it's your last night. Freaking let it fly.
It was kind of yeah.
Well, they stood there for quite a while. Like, I mean, it was short, but considering the amount of shooting time, like it was a long time, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was thinking they're going to sit there a little bit longer, and sure enough, he gets it full draw, and they took off, and it happened so fast.
Yeah. But that first one, we went, we looked for the arrow. We still didn't find that arrow. Found the second arrow. But we walked up kind of the direction we saw them running off. I caught a little bit of blood. You were still looking for the arrow for me, and then I was like, I'm going to go grab my other arrow and just eyeball this area. And
so for the listeners, the one that he shot that was off to the right, that kind of went on, I'm going to say a sow. She was over by herself. The rest of the group ran to the left when he was pulled back and shooting. She followed suit, flipped back around, followed that exact line, and chased the rest of them. And so I knew, even though I couldn't find the arrow, I was like, there should be blood on that trail from her because she followed them. But I couldn't find it. You were the one who spotted it. You found first blood on it. So
well, I walked out, and I remember saw something on a leaf that kind of caught my eye, and then I looked over a little bit further and saw a rock. And, there was a spray across that rock. And, so we started following that blood, and, there was a good amount. There was a couple of spots where, there was just a few drops, but we'd come by anytime she'd brushed up against something. We found a cactus that was just about soaked in it.
Yeah.
And there were some good spots, and every time we kind of went through some cover or around a corner and kind of expected to see her piled up there, and the trail just kept going
and going.
And we had a good amount for quite a while.
On Onyx, we tracked a mile.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was crawling. It was the most intense blood trail I've ever tracked, that's for sure.
And I'll tell you what, I swear, you could find a drop of blood on a pile of red velvet in the dark.
Thank you.
I swear. There was definitely some spots. Like I caught a few spots at times, but you'd be flying through, you're like blood, and I'm looking, I'm like, where the hell is she talking about? And
it's just practice.
And then
there's practice.
Yeah. I tell you what, and we got to a certain point, it started slowing down, and there'd be just a drop, but it was consistent.
It was consistent.
There was times we'd be, it had to be at least 2/3 of that mile were on our hands and knees.
Yeah,
crawling
so
through.
There's lots of trails up underneath this thick cover, and just only hollowed out enough for the size of medium-sized pig. So you had to be literally crawling on your hands and knees. And
it was sketchy.
It was sketchy.
Really sketchy.
Yeah, I had my 40 loaded, ready to pop one as soon as anything came our way, because you don't ever need to track hogs. Regardless, you don't need to track one without a gun, but on your hands and knees in that thick of cover. If they're wounded, you're done unless you have something to protect yourself. And when we were going through that thick stuff, honestly, like, it was just, sometimes there would be just an obvious tunnel where I don't even care about blood. I just need to get through this thick stuff so I can get up and be a little bit safer. And as long as I could see, there were times where maybe I couldn't see blood because it was just like leaves and dirt and it was just really, really thick cover. But I could see her steps. And I could even see at points where she was struggling. You know, just over the years, Braxton's a freaking, he can track anything, but he has taught me, you know, the way that their footing is. You can tell when they're struggling. You can tell when they're starting to rock. You can tell when the blood swipes certain ways off. I don't know how to explain it. It's one of the things you have to do it so many times before you can really master it, and I'm so far from that. But many times I would just see footprints, and I'm like, I just need to get through this tunnel because I'm screwed if they come running at me right now. And yeah, that's like, I learned a lot this week. Just some of the experiences we had were pretty incredible.
I mean, and we were on that, till 11 o'clock. I mean, it was pitch black, and there was no moon. Mm-mm. I mean, it was as black as it gets. Like, if, I had my backup headlamp, because God knows where my good one is right now. It's in my car somewhere. But we had the spotlight and my crappy headlamp, and we're both sitting there thinking, like, if we're crawling on our hands and knees and both of these go out, we're screwed.
Yeah, I thought about that.
I mean, we got the phone lights, I guess. We could have made it out.
One of mine went out a couple nights before, which is the only reason I thought about that. We charge our lights every night, and I didn't charge mine for a couple nights, and so I'm walking through the field, and my light just goes out. I'm like, cool. And I have no other one. So, anyway.
But, yeah, so it was pitch black. We spent, from the time we started hunting, it was probably like about 5 hours from the time we left at the house to the time we stopped. So, we got through in the blood trail. We just got to a point where couldn't find it anymore. You were finding like one drop on a leaf in a,
like, yeah, it was
the occasional brush on a tall piece of grass. Those were the ones that would give us a little more hope, because there was still a good amount of blood on.
I got excited.
Brush on some.
I got excited when we come up to tall grass, because that's just easy tracking. Truthfully,
Yeah.
They have to swipe. There's no way they can't. So, I looked forward to that. It was the more open, or we'd come to
dirt,
or it'd come into like a, it's split into three paths, and then you're trying to figure out which way did they go. I mean, it's all fun, but after a mile of it, you're like, where is the dang pig? I'm still at a loss right now.
And it was tough. We got to a spot where there just wasn't much left to see, and and then it didn't help when I hear a slight rumble and I turn around.
Pack of dogs.
And I just see, like, I don't have the big bright spotlight. I'm just using my headlamp, so I'm not illuminating a bunch of stuff. All I see is just, it was like a bad movie.
Yeah.
Like the one, the wilderness movie where you're about to die.
Yeah, Snow White.
I swear, it's just
or was it? No, Beauty and the Beast. That's what it was.
Exactly, where the wolves.
Yeah.
And I just look and I just see eyes, a whole row of eyes, and I'm like, well, I've got one arrow left.
I have a 40, and I didn't even know they were there.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, Juice, coyotes. Because we literally just like 5 minutes before
heard them
from that same direction. Just heard. They were just lighting off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wouldn't normally be afraid of coyotes, but I'm like, we're barely armed.
Yeah.
And there was like 15 or 20 of them.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, so I'm gonna have rabies. And I'm like, just gun coyotes.
Yeah.
And we turn around, and then all of a sudden we kind of hear a buggy coming by. Yeah. And they came running up close enough, and I'm like, oh, it's dogs. Somebody's running dogs.
Yeah, so there ended up being like it's still going on right now. They started Friday evening, weigh-in is Sunday morning, and these guys entered a hog competition. They're huge down here. Predators, hog competitions, all of them. It's just, there's always something going on. These guys had every bit of 15 dogs, full-blown collars. They had buggies. They had, was it 4 horses?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had 4 guys on horses.
It was intense.
It was intense.
It was no joke at all.
And people who are really into running dogs down here they spend some money, and I mean, it's incredible. I've done it, and it's really cool to watch those dogs work. But they had legit like buggies with the really nice kennels and collars, and the horses were, I mean, literally booking it in the dark down trails, trying to catch up to the dogs, and it's a thing down here. I didn't know they were doing that, or I'd have been like, hey, can we come along? I would have loved for you to experience it.
That would have been cool.
They were ready to.
We heard them just on the other side of where that trail was headed. We heard them light up on a hog.
Yes.
And so there's a good chance that hog got taken one way or the other, but
yeah.
It is what it is. We put in about as good of an effort as anyone could ever put in on that.
I feel good about
finding that hog. I do not feel bad about it at all. It's, once again, it happens. It's not ideal, but and that's the thing. You want to make every single effort. If you think an animal's been wounded, you make every effort, and we were there. There was no more blood. There just wasn't. It would have been 1 or 2 drops.
And Braxton said it too. He said, hogs can lose. They can go a long time. They can lose a lot of blood and be fine. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen them on cameras. They pop back on cameras with wounds, and you're like, no different than, you're hunting whitetail or something, and you're like, I literally felt like I made a great shot on that buck, and it's on camera. I mean, I haven't experienced that, but I've seen a lot of my friends it's happened to, and you can't explain it, and it was a huge wake up call for me too, because I'm like, man, I mean, we tried everything we could, and I've played it in my head over and over again. What could I have done differently? Wondering, did I have you in the best possible position? I told you this when we were on our way here. Like, it's still just hard for me because I had this determination to get you your first pig, and it just wasn't meant to be. What do you do?
And like I said, in my mind, I mean, after the first day, I felt this way. After this, everything, I look at this, and this was a successful trip.
Yeah. Yeah. Heck yeah.
I talk about this all the time on the podcast, is you have to gauge your measure of success. And, I didn't know what was going to happen. Obviously, every time you go out hunting, your goal is to harvest an animal. And, we went out, but you have to really set reasonable measures of success. And I came out wanting to learn, for one, just wanting an experience, wanting a fun time, which, God help me, it was so much fun. And wanting to really just experience that first attempt, like a real attempt at an animal.
Yeah.
And you guys gave me so many opportunities for that. And literally I had, just about every possible type of opportunity and thing that could happen in that, and all in one trip.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Spot and stock and sitting in the blinds and releasing and missing, releasing and having to track and all of this stuff all balled into one trip. I mean, I feel like this prepared me for so many future hunts and so much. I mean, it was an amazing time. I could not have honestly asked for more, and y'all gave me so many opportunities for shots. Like I said, there's honestly not at all. You should not at all feel like I could have done more, because it comes. There's a certain point where it comes down to the hunter has to calm the hell down and make a good shot, and that's something that comes with practice and a lot more experience, and some I'm looking forward to doing some more in the future. And
even with a lot of experience, though, I just want to say for anybody listening, like even two years ago, I'd been, I don't know, three or 4 seasons I'd already been bow hunting, and 2 seasons ago, in one weekend, in a 3-day hunt, I skimmed the underside, like the chest of what would have been my biggest buck ever. I drew back and hit the blind. I hit a hog high in like the really fatty area. It came back, it slid, and that was in a row. And I remember going back to the lodge and I told Braxton, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm not meant to do this. That's 3 shots back to back of things that, so it does happen even after you've done it for a while. And I just really want people to hear that, because it's not talked about enough. And when you do talk about it, it has to be done in a respectful way, of course, because I never want it to be that we don't care about these mistakes that we make. But you can't talk about it and then not talk about the emotion and how it impacted you internally. Otherwise, you sound just cold,
Yeah.
and it's just not that way. It's just this is what bow hunting presents to you at times, and will continue to do. So it doesn't matter how long you've done it. It's just part of it. And it's not because it's your first time or you don't have enough experience, because people that do still make these mistakes. And everybody needs to hear that.
Awesome. Well, I think we are about due to start heading off to the airport. We're pretty close, cutting it close.
Oh my gosh, we gotta go.
Yeah. But thank you, as always, for an awesome time. Thank you for sitting down. It was fun to talk through everything, and a nice way to close out the week, I think. So.
For sure. It was fun. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yes.
All right, y'all, that'll do it for episode 61 of Living Country in the City. Make sure y'all head on over to the show notes page at livingcountryinthecity.com/61. You can find links to everything we talked about in the episode there. Also, I'm hoping to put up a video of the hog hunt soon, so keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, keep it country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.